How we doing, folks? Welcome in the Week 10 pregame. I'm Jason Blakeney. With me is Brady Amol. And Brady, we're here Week 10, a couple rivalry games, but very few games really with any meaning.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, most of the district races are sewn up at this point, or at least come down to one or two games. A lot of games are just basically kind of filling out the season for a lot of teams.
Right. And we'll go over the games that have some postseason implications to them last. Go to the what we'll call the normal games for the week. Start with Pace coming down, playing Catholic, a matchup we haven't seen in recent years.
No, and it's a nice non-district matchup to kind of end the season for Pace. Gives them a chance to see one more spread team, because there's a very good chance in the playoffs they'll either see, a PHS or a Knightsville or a Navarre. And don't run the same kind of spread that Catholic High does, but they'll get an idea of how to match up against that spread offense. And for Catholic, it's a chance to kind of build on this. A lot of sophomores, and these last two games against bigger teams, both 6A teams, it's kind of a chance to get them some momentum going into the offseason with some young players.
Yeah, and that Catholic team, they got to be a little bit bummed that they didn't make the postseason. But again, like you said, a lot of sophomores on that team, a lot left to learn, and really you can start preparing right now for next season. All right, we're going to go to the battle for Yale Wash Boiler. Thought maybe at the beginning of the year, maybe some sort of district implication would be included here with PHS moving up. That turns out not to be the case. Tigers already have it wrapped up, but they travel to Escambia tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a big game. It's still a rivalry game, and as Coach Bennett says, the other rivalry games, you're basically just playing for a win, and then you go home. He said, with this one, you get to take home the tub. And he's like, and you get to hold on to that tub for a whole year. So, it's definitely big for PHS, and I think the storyline in that one is see how PHS does without Jalen Spencer for an entire game.
Right.
Last week they lost him in the second quarter, and were able to kind of coast in that game. Let's see how that offense does without him there to kind of start the game. Demarius Travis will shift over to quarterback for PHS. So I'm kind of interested to see what kind of offense that they have this week.
Yeah, they're still not lacking for athletes over there.
No.
It's the experience, though, and you saw at the beginning of the year, they didn't have a whole lot of experience, and they struggled a little bit on defense. And as they've gained that experience, they've increasingly gotten better. And it's an opportunity this week to show that they can win without Jalen. And again, for them, maybe it's a little bit of a preview for next year. So I mean, we'll see what happens there. Sticking in District 1-6A, Pine Forest will host Milton at 7:30.
Yeah, I mean, as we kind of said that this game could have been huge if Milton had beaten Pace. Now it's basically a third place game. But to say it's not huge, it would is not fair, because both teams are also very young. Pine Forest is loaded with juniors. I mean, 30-something juniors on that team and only 10 seniors. So for both teams, a win in this game kind of going into the offseason with some momentum would be huge, especially for Pine Forest, because they lost to PHS, they lost to Pace, they lost to Madison County, so they kind of had that bad taste in their mouth. They'd like to finish the season on a good note,
Yeah, and they showed last week that they weren't done for the year. So we'll see how that goes going forward. Tate traveling to Washington, a game against two teams that have really struggled this year. You got to think maybe Washington has a little more confidence. They've played in some games. Tate winless on the year. What do you expect here?
Well, I think it's going to be two teams that obviously want to finish the season with the win. I mean, they haven't tasted victory. Washington hasn't tasted victory since week 5 or 6, and then Tate hasn't experienced victory at all this year. So I think both teams are going to be hungry for a win. It's going to kind of come down to, like you said, which team has kind of mailed it in yet. Which team has already started looking forward to basketball season.
Right.
I think obviously Washington has the offensive weapons to get it done, but Tate's kind of been moving the football the last few weeks with that scrum. So we'll see if they they have enough, and if their confidence is not completely shot, after that brutal schedule they played this year.
Yeah, it has been a tough one, and that wraps up our games with really no meaning.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up what we'll call the pride games.
Yeah.
Getting into a couple districts where it actually matters on the field. District 1-5A and District 1A. Both districts teams can find themselves on the outside looking in after good seasons with a loss. We'll start first in 1-5A. The Gulf Breeze, strong season for them. A loss tonight, though, puts them out of the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go to Rutherford, and that scenario is very simple. If Gulf Breeze and Arnold both win, then we have a three-way shootout. If only one of them wins, then there is no shootout. There's a tiebreaker. West Florida's already finished. They played Childs in a non-district game. So they're basically just able to sit back. But yeah, this is a huge game for Gulf Breeze. Rutherford, coming off of a big win over Bay, scored a lot of points last week. I still think Gulf Breeze, is the favorite in this game. It's just a situation where their backs are against the wall. They haven't been in a situation in a long time with this. These players haven't. So we'll see how they respond. And going on the road and having to win that game because it's a must win. Like you said, if they don't win, they're not in. There's no other way to put it for them.
Right, and West Florida goes to Childs. We won't talk much about that game. I feel like West Florida is going to be a favorite in that one. And like we said on the picks video, maybe they rest some guys with the potential of a shootout on the horizon. They start an hour before everyone else, so they wouldn't have any idea how the other teams are doing.
Exactly.
But it shakes out pretty simple. If Arnold wins and Gulf Breeze wins, it's a shootout. Arnold wins and Gulf Breeze loses, then Arnold's your district champ, West Florida's your runner-up.
Yeah.
Conversely, if Gulf Breeze wins and Arnold loses, then West Florida's your district champ and Gulf Breeze is your runner-up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty simple. There's a lot of what ifs, but the scenarios are pretty simple. I mean, if only one of those teams wins, then there's a clear-cut winner. If both of those teams wins, then we'll have a shootout and we'll determine it on the field.
Right, and District 1A, though, it's a little more complicated. You could have a couple more scenarios for different shootout situations. We'll start there. Northview, the favorite there, they have Baker tonight, and that's a game that the Gators, they possibly could come in and still win.
Yeah, no, I mean, Baker's got a lot of athletes. They only lost two losses this year, but one of them is to Freeport in a very low-scoring game. But Baker has the athletes to play with Northview, and when I talked to Coach Wheatley at the beginning of the year, he kind of said that. He says, Freeport's one of those teams where they're going to line up, and you know what they're going to do. Baker's one of those teams that's a lot more like Northview in that they have pretty good athletes, they have pretty good size. I would not be surprised if this is a very close game and high scoring because I think both offenses are pretty potent. But obviously, if Northview wins this one, they're the outright district champion, and that's huge in that they'll host every playoff game until the finals,
right,
if they would happen to win that one. So that's a lot of motivation for them. Obviously, if Baker wins and if Freeport takes care of Jay in that other game, we got a three-way tie for first, and we're looking at a shootout in that situation.
Right.
So, and then on the flip side, you talk about the other shootout. If Northview happens to beat Baker and Jay happens to beat Freeport, we're looking at another shootout there.
Right, all sorts of possibilities there. You talk about Jay. How likely is it that they pull off this upset?
Well, I don't think it's very likely, but they have a lot to play for. My whole thing with Jay is they've shown improvement, but how much improvement have they shown? Because they lost their starting tailback. They lost their number 2 tailback to a broken collarbone. They've lost a safety during the season. Their numbers are dwindling. And Freeport obviously knows that if they win this game and Northview takes care of Baker, then they're second place team by the head-to-head comparison.
Right. Well, any upset though in these two games likely leads to a shootout.
Exactly.
So, like I say, that one's a little more convoluted, a lot more different combinations that could lead to shootouts. So, what we'll hope for is just a couple of favorites earn wins, no shootout in that district, and we're only dealing with the one shootout in District 1-5A. All right. Well, that wraps us up. Join us tomorrow for our post-game video where we'll wrap this whole thing up. We'll tell you who's going where, who's playing who, and what the matchups are for the first week of the playoffs. Let you know where you need to be on Monday night for which shootout, because there's going to be at least one, we think. So, thanks for joining us. I'm Jason Blaney. This is Brady Amon, and we will see you tomorrow.